Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk a little bit today about our fourth homework assignment. Homework assignments 2 and 3 were really similar. They're talking about voltage and amperage carrying capacity in a wire. Homework 4 and 5 are about a different subject. They are about a road bed, creating a road bed. So what I've done is I've got oh, that's the wrong one. I've got a little tutorial that I've written that I'll put up on the screen in just a moment. It's also available on our Moodle page. But before we do that, let's take a look at this, how we're going to construct it. So we're building a roadway, and some of the inputs that we would like the user to have would be the length, the width, and how many lanes so the total width, in other words, the number of lanes times width per lane, and then however deep the road base is. The three of those things multiplied together, length, width, and height, or length, width, and depth, will give you a volume, and that's how much fill or how much a base material we're going to need. Now, we also know that the base is comprised of three different things: concrete, gravel, and clay, and we're given the percentages of both, or we would like the user to be able to input those percentages in case they change. And then we've also got a cost per cubic yard of concrete, gravel, and clay, which are the three components of the base. Now, there are a couple of things before we get started on the math that I want to show you. First of all, what we're really talking about is a dollar value. So we want to find out how many dollars this thing is going to cost us. And the dollars of each one of the components is given in cost per cubic yard. So that means when we find the volume, we'd like to find the volume in cubic yards, because then we'll be ready to just convert it into amounts in cubic yards and then multiply by cost per cubic yard and get that whole thing. So what I've done here is I've broken it up into 5 different parts. This should have a number 5 right here. I just forgot to put that. The first one is to find the volume of the material needed for the base. Now, the volume is going to be the length times the width times the depth, but the length is given in miles. So I should also include here that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. The width is given in feet, and the depth is given in inches. So there are 12 inches per foot. In the problem that we have, the depth is given as 60 inches. So that would be 60 divided by 12, or 5 feet. The width, we're told there are 4 lanes, each of which are 15 feet in length, or in dimension. So that's 60 feet wide. And the length is given as some number of miles. So let's see. I don't even know where that file is right now. So anyway, it's given as a particular number of miles. So I think it's 1,700. So to get that in feet, you would take that number, however long it is in miles, 1,700, or whatever the number is, and multiply it by 5,280. That will give you feet. All right. So then once you have the depth in feet and the width in feet, which you already have after you multiply by the number of lanes, and then the length in feet, you'll have the volume in cubic feet. There are 27 cubic feet per yard. So whatever number you get here for volume in cubic feet, you would divide by 27 in order to get the number of cubic yards. Now it's going to be the total number of cubic yards of the base of that highway. So the first thing you need to do when you're doing MATLAB is to check to make sure that length, width, and depth are all positive. In other words, you can't have a negative length or a negative width or depth. So you want to check to make sure that all three of those things are greater than 0, or greater than or equal to 0, however you want to express that. It would be greater than 0 would be better. All right, so then here's where we talk about expressing it in cubic yards. So once you get that piece, that's the first section of the program. You don't have to write it as an actual section, but you could, and then you would just have a volume. All right, the next step would be to find out how much of each material you need. So we have a percent of clay, a percent of gravel, and a percent of concrete. Well, percent divided by 100 is the decimal fraction equivalent of how much of it is in that particular substance. So if the percent of clay, for example, was 25%, you would take 25 divided by 100 and then multiply it by that total volume that you found up here after you changed it into cubic yards. Then you do the same thing for gravel and concrete, and you get 3 volumes. Now there's 2 ways that you can check to see if this is correct, or 2 things that you need to check. One is that the 3 percentages need to add up to be 100, or that these 3 volumes, the volume of concrete plus the volume of gravel plus the volume of clay, add up to be the total volume in cubic yards of the base. Either one of those will be a good check, but I did it in my program, I did it based on the percents. All right, now we know how much clay we need, how much gravel we need, and how much concrete we need. And if we have those in cubic yards, we can quickly find out how much each of those components is going to cost us by taking what we found up in number 3, the volume of clay, and multiplying it by the cost of clay per cubic yard, which is given in the homework problem. Then the volume of gravel times that cost per cubic yard, and the volume of concrete times that. Okay, now a check here for MATLAB would be that all of those costs also must be above 0. And last but not least, to find the total cost of the project, we just add those 3 numbers. The cost for the clay in dollars, plus cost for the gravel in dollars, plus the cost for the concrete in dollars. So you add those 3 things, and you've completed the assignment. Now there are a couple of points I realized after I wrote this. When I put this, dollars clay, dollars gravel, dollars concrete, this is, the dollar sign is not a good symbol to use as a variable in MATLAB. So you'd want to call it dollars clay or D clay or something like that. Just something descriptive for you, because if you put a dollar sign, I think it may interfere with a command. So I didn't mean this as a variable name, just as a way for me to keep track of that. And then the other thing is, since the percent of these 3 things have to add up to 100, one thing I did was for my last, I input the value of clay, and or the percent of clay and the percent of gravel, and then I took 100 minus the percent clay plus the percent of gravel, and that needed to be the percent of concrete. If it isn't, that would be a mistake. But you can also just check it this way. If you do all 3 inputs, just make sure that they add up to 100%. Because otherwise it means you either have more than you started with, or less than you need, or something's wrong. So, but for me, and once like I said, I put this sheet, it's actually 2 pages, 2-page file on our Moodle page. See if I can find it over here, and I will put this video right underneath it. So if you go to homework 4 to 6, this is the file that I was just referring to, so you can have a copy of that. I'll put the video right here with it, and please let me know if you have any other questions. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow, which is Thursday, July 2nd.